Hi students, welcome to the video session. Today we are going to learn the lesson The Capturing of the Iron Man, written by Ted Hughes. Ted Hughes was an Englishman who is often considered among the greatest poets and writers of his time. His works includes poetry, translations, non-fiction and children's books. The Hawk in the Rain and The Iron Man are among his popular works. Let us see the summary of the lesson. The Capturing of the Iron Man is an extract from Ted Hughes' popular children's novel The Iron Man. A young boy, Hogarth, sees a gigantic creature made of iron watching him from a cliff top. This creature, who comes to be known as the Iron Man, devours all of the iron machinery in the village and proves to be a menace. The villagers decided to trap him by digging a deep hole and camouflaging it. Then they place a lorry over it as a bait, hoping that the Iron Man will come for the lorry and fall into the hole. However, the Iron Man eludes capture for several days. One day, Hogarth chances upon the Iron Man again and hatches a clever plan to lure him into the trap by using his knife to make a metallic sound. Hogarth is successful as the Iron Man falls into the trap with a loud crash, and thus Hogarth becomes a hero. This story can be a modern fairy tale modeled on science fiction. It is written in simple, expressive language that children can understand and relate it so easily. The narrative is brought alive through the use of onomatopoeia. The story's greatest appeal is that it is set in the modern times with an ingenious child cast as the hero, which makes it easily relatable to children. Now let us read the lesson.
Capturing of the Iron Man by Ted Hughes. One evening, a little boy called Hogarth was fishing in a stream that ran down to the sea. Suddenly he felt he was being watched. He turned and looked at the top of the high cliff. He saw, in the dusk, two green lights. Then, as Hogarth watched, a huge dark figure climbed up over the cliff top. The two lights rose into the sky. A giant black figure, taller than a house, with green headlamp eyes. The Iron Man had come back. Next morning, all the farmers were shouting with anger. Where were their tractors, their earth diggers, their plows, their harrows? Who had stolen it all? There was a clue. From farm to farm, over the soft soil of the fields, went giant footprints, each one the size of a single bed. And at every farm the footprints visited, all the metal machinery had disappeared. They couldn't call in the police or the army because nobody would believe them about this iron monster. So what did they do? At the bottom of the hill, on top of which the Iron Man had been seen, they dug a deep, enormous hole. A hole wider than a house and as deep as 3 trees, one on top of the other. They covered the hole with branches, and the branches they covered with straw, and the straw with soil. So when they finished, the hole looked like a freshly plowed field. On one side of the hole, they put an old rusty lorry. That was the bait. The Iron Man would see the old lorry, which was painted red, and he'd come down to eat it. Then he would crash into the hole and would never get out. Then they'd bring the few bulldozers and earth movers that he hadn't already eaten, and they'd bury him forever in the hole. They were certain now that they'd get him. The next morning, in great excitement, all the farmers gathered together to examine their trap. They came closer carefully, expecting to see his hands tearing at the edge of the pit. The red lorry stood just as they had left it. The soil lay undisturbed. The Iron Man had not come. And so it went on, day after day. Still the Iron Man never came. Now the farmers began to wonder if he would ever come again. They began to wonder if he had ever come at all. They began to make up explanations of what had happened to their machinery. Nobody likes to believe in an iron monster that eats tractors and cars. One day, Hogarth thought he could use that hole to trap a fox. He found a dead hen and threw it out onto the loose soil over the trap. Then, towards evening, he climbed a tree nearby and waited. Soon he noticed a big red fox looking towards the dead hen and sniffing. But soon the fox turned his head and looked towards the top of the cliff. Hogarth, wondering what the fox had seen, also looked up. There, enormous in the blue evening sky, stood the Iron Man on the cliff. In a moment, the fox had vanished. Hogarth climbed slowly down the tree. He could hear a strange tearing and creaking sound. The Iron Man was pulling up the barbed wire fence that led down the hill and eating it. But if he went along the fence, he wouldn't come anywhere near the trap, which was out in the middle of the field. Hogarth had an idea. In his pocket, among other things, he had a long nail and a knife. He took these out. His idea frightened him. In the silent dusk, he tapped the nail and the knife blade together. Click. At the sound of the metal, the Iron Man's hands became still. After a few seconds, he slowly turned his head and the headlamp eyes shone towards Hogarth. Again, click, went the nail on the knife. Hogarth pressed close to the tree trunk. Between him and the Iron Man lay the wide lid of the trap. Click. Again, he tapped the nail on the knife. And now the Iron Man was coming. Hogarth could feel the earth shaking under the weight of his footsteps. Was it too late to run? Hogarth stared at the Iron Man, looming, searching towards him for the taste of the metal that had made that inviting sound. Clink, went the nail on the knife. And crash! The Iron Man vanished. Hogarth went close to the pit. The earth was shaking as the Iron Man struggled underground. Hogarth peered over the edge of the great pit. Far below, two deep red headlamps glared up at him from the pitch blackness. Hogarth ran home with the great news, and as he passed the cottages on the way, he was shouting, "The Iron Man's in the trap! And we've got the Iron Giant!"
Let us go through the word meanings. Dusk, late evening. Arrows, implements that consist of heavy wooden frames which have spikes or teeth and are dragged over plowed land to loosen the soil or remove weeds and cover seeds. Machinery, different kinds of machines. Enormous, very large. Rusty, something made of iron that is covered in a reddish brown coating. Bait, food or other objects placed in a trap in order to attract prey. Bulldozers, large tractor like vehicles which are used to push earth and stones away as well as to flatten the ground. Earth movers, machines designed to dig large quantities of soil. Looming, emerging in a threatening manner. Inviting sound, an attractive, tempting sound. Students, please read the lesson and write the word meanings in your notebook. Thank you for learning along. Thank you and have a great day.